Welcome to Public Comment. I'm John Dunbar, former mayor of Yountville.
And I'm Alfredo Pedroza, vintner.
Thanks for joining us as we talk about politics, people, and whatever else is on our mind while we enjoy this beautiful porch.
Love this porch, John.
It's not just for our recap of our episodes. We're going to do a little something extra special and enjoy the beautiful natural environment throughout the episode.
These are tough working conditions, John. It's cold outside. I look forward to doing this in the summer.
You're a farmer. You're used to this kind of
I
thing.
just finished up harvest, John. I'm still recovering.
Well, let's keep drinking Napa Valley wine in your recovery. Having conversations where you can respect each other and have different opinions is supposed to be the way it works.
And I'd love to hear from people too if they think I'm wrong.
To change the way we talk about what's happening in our valley.
There's a gap in our community.
This next year is the general plan. Alfredo, here we are wrapping up our second season. We've been doing this for almost one full year, and we've had quite a few topics, quite a few guests. What are some of your highlights?
There's so much to remember, John. It's been a beautiful season. We've made it to two seasons. I don't know if people thought we'd make it through one, and here we are. We're resilient, John.
We started this January 16th.
Jesus, you have a good memory. We started this going back to like the very first episode, John, of trying to be a communication vehicle, right? Knowing that podcasts, people like them. And you were maybe a bigger believer than I was, John, because maybe people want to talk to you and I don't want to talk to people, but you kept reinforcing people are talking about it. And I think that is true, right? But let me start off with something that surprised me this season, right? How intimate people were, right? Sharing personal stories of someone saying, I lost my daughter, or someone saying I was diagnosed with cancer. I never anticipated, John, that we would have a platform and make people comfortable to talk about shit like that. And that's deep stuff, man. And the fact that they felt comfortable to talk about it and tell the story publicly, I'm pretty proud of that.
I am too, and we said from the very beginning when we started having guests about halfway through season one, was that we wanted to basically introduce people in a little bit more of a personal way than maybe the general public knew them. And so I feel like we've absolutely accomplished that. To your point about people being willing to share some of their personal information, their family history, it's been really satisfying.
Well, not that the noise is distracting, but so appropriate to how this season has gone with construction.
It's very real out here.
Yeah. We talked about, lodging, which was something that we wanted to talk about, hotels in season one. We followed up in season two. We had Rick come in and tell us a story of what it's like to be a hotel owner, right? That was so rewarding, talking about insurance going up so much and what it means to him, right? And when people would talk to me, they'd say, I love learning about that. I didn't know about that. And that's the intent, right? So check, mission accomplished. But then talking to Adam Housley around media and the economics around it and how it's worked and it's divisive and how the system works in very top levels, it reinforced a lot of what we were talking about, John, of how the media is a business. And it is changing before our eyes even more when you hear about who's buying the new traditional media sources. All that is happening before our eyes. And we kind of talked about social media too, and how it's changed the way people live. And the fact that you and I are not paid by anyone, we're here, we have no sponsors yet, but we're speaking our truth. And the fact that people are consuming it, right? Because we do see the trend lines, we do see people tuning in, and maybe some of the people that don't like us are tuning in even greater. And we know that, by the way. I'm not gonna tell them that, but now they heard it. But that's exciting, John.
I will say, for the record, we have had a significantly higher percentage of people that have been supportive and like what we're doing versus those that have decided to take cheap shots at us, either on social media or directly by email. But that's okay.
With a fake email address and a fake name. Have the guts to tell us in person if you dislike it.
I don't care if it's a real or fake name. What I appreciate is they're listening. And the whole point of this is to share experiences that are happening in our community. And we've done that, not only just the conversations you and I've had, but also bringing people here that have had different experiences than we have. Some of them we've worked together, we've been colleagues, some we've been longtime friends, but it's been a real cross-section of of people that live here in the Valley.
Well, even like, public health, we had Amy from Queen of the Valley, and her talking about what it's like to be the lead person of a hospital and how that was going through the pandemic, and how she was flying the plane just like you and I were. We're going through the same thing. But it's rare that we have a chance to talk about that. It's rare that people from these sectors come together, and we are creating that, John. And to me, that's the vehicle. And the fact that you, especially, and I do want to acknowledge you because you're very disciplined and structured. You stay on top of it.
You've mentioned that before, I think.
And you remind me, because you're a very good friend, that we're recording on Mondays, and that's super helpful. But I see value in that too, John, right? And you and I are busy. We can go do other things, but we're choosing to do this because there's a gap in our community, right? And even when we had Visit Napa Valley and all the shit they went through, people are listening to that and understanding, not through what you read in the paper, but orally through someone's own collective perspective. That's so valuable today.
Yeah, there have been some topics and some guests that we've talked with that have been about issues that have already been kind of publicized locally, that are being talked about locally. But there's some that, whether it was coincidental timing or not, the issues came up after we had those conversations. I know when we had Kate Miller on talking about transportation, and we have spoken with some differences of opinion about the recent paving and striping.
Well, you continue to piss her off. That's nothing new.
Well,
you did it in the board meeting. You're doing it now.
Having conversations where you can respect each other and have different opinions is supposed to be the way it works.
Well, look, yes, and how refreshing is it that we can still do that, right? And the fact that you and I both worked with Kate, and we still talk to her, I think we also shed a perspective of there is life after politics, there's life after professional careers, and we still work together, right? Because there's a mutual respect, John, for our jobs. Just like we respected her, I think she respected what we did as elected officials. And the one, too, because we always bitch about the wine industry regulations. We heard from people like Grant Long, who's on the road, was on the road, is on the road now. And I get to see some because, we text, but the hard work of going out on the road, being away from your family, doing wine dinners night after night, it's fun when you're 20, 30 years old, but when you have family and you have people you're responsible for, that's not the glitz and glamour of the job, but it's what people are doing to go promote Napa Valley in Kansas, in Missouri, in Wisconsin, and all these places. They're out there. He's one example. He's one vintner that are doing it. And the fact that we can talk about it and share that story, he's one of many. That's what this podcast is about, John. It's kind of that platform to talk about the shit that's not on the front page of the paper.
One of the things that was our goal, which I think we've achieved, is to not only inspire people to listen, and I'm sure not everybody's listening to every episode. I know we have one incredibly loyal follower who has commented literally every episode. Yeah. And I want to say thank you, Michael, for what you've been providing us for context and perspective. But we've had several others that either in person or by email have shared their thoughts. Now, not everybody loves our perspective, but that's also why we wanted guests to be here to share their individual perspective that we can then talk through, and it's not just you and me talking.
Well, look, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to do a season 3, I think, but
we're definitely doing a season 3.
Fine, John, twist my arm. It's really ruining my lunch schedule. But, AI is a topic that I think we got to continue to talk about, how it's going to change the way people do business. All this fear that it's going to take jobs away. I necessarily don't believe it, but I'm fascinated by that topic. Education's another one. I mean, higher education, because there's a lot of, discussion around, I have nieces in college right now, and, one of the podcasts I was listening to, they're all great, you go get an anthropology degree from Cal, because you love Cal, and you rack up $300,000 in debt, and then you go get a job in anthropology, right, for $60,000. The math doesn't add up, right? But then you're on the hook for $350,000, and then you're trying to buy a house. You can't, right? So this whole reform of how colleges and the degrees they offer, there might be some shared, skin in the game around colleges. And I think hearing from a professor or someone that's young going through college, John, I think that would be a good perspective to hear as well.
I want to keep encouraging people to share their ideas about what topics they would like or what guests they think that that could be interesting for us to have. I mean, we have publiccommentnapa@gmail.com as one vehicle for people to share. Certainly, like I've told you, when I'm at Browns Valley Market and I've had people stop by and just say, thanks for doing what you're doing. I don't even know them sometimes, and they've heard of what we're talking about. They've listened, and I think that's great. I think we have an opportunity that we've embraced to kind of change the way we talk about what's happening in our valley. It's not just on Nextdoor. It's not just on social media. We're actually talking face to face with people, which is almost a lost art.
I know. Look, I have so many ideas right now, John. So don't kill the mood, John. Another one that I thought we should, and I'd love to hear from people too if they think I'm wrong. But I see this, when I go to the morning, I drop off my kids, and I see parents gathering, right? And then I go to Pete's, and I see a group of old timers, there, and we've flirted with this topic about purpose, John, of people wanting purpose, and I don't know whether that's a psychologist that should come, and that could be dangerous, but I'm very curious, and I really mean that because you and I have found purpose, right? We created an opportunity that, we get to talk about this. I do think, and it's not just specific to a segment of our population, I think a lot of what people are struggling with, and we flirted with Amy a little bit around mental health, but this concept of purpose, whether you're 20 years old, 30 years old, trying to figure out what the hell you're gonna do with your life, or you're 50, 60, which you can relate, or 70, maybe you can relate to that too.
Be careful now.
But purpose, right? And I think there's something going on, John, in all communities around the lack of purpose, and sometimes it gets manifested in negativity, right? We talked about one of the hotels having to restructure debt and people celebrating that. It's not something we should celebrate, but it was purpose for some people. And I don't know how the hell you tackle that issue, but I'd love to hear from someone that's certified to talk about that, to say what the hell's going on with people.
We've committed to staying very hyper local, and I think we've been really successful doing that.
Yeah.
The people we've had on, I think some are in higher profile positions, some are not. And we talked about the fact that they've been very open and honest about their personal lives or their business lives. There's so many more areas we can get into, like you've talked about a few of them.
Lots.
Different segments of the population. There are still many untapped jobs, careers that people are having that I'd like to have come here and tell us, what is it like? I mean, the wine industry as a whole is one thing, but the complexity of what it takes to grow, to produce, to sell, to ship, to truck, to get the labels on the bottles, all of those things that most people don't see or even know about. I'd like to get a little bit more insider information of some of that, but it's also about what is it like to have your own business, whether it's retail or you're a barber or whatever it is. So I think there'd be some more empathy for people because they understand the hardship it is.
Yeah. And maybe we haven't invited current electeds. Maybe that's something we talk about, because I do think the whole election process is changing, whether people are running unopposed and why that's happening, right? I think it's changed the way that people look at office, right? I'm not saying that we need to go see the next John Dunbar, the next Alfredo Pedroza. People would panic if that were the case. But, why are people not getting into public office anymore? And you're seeing that throughout. That is a super local issue, but it's everywhere, John. And I think calling attention to that's something that sparks my curiosity for season 3.
I do hope that we can, and I think we will. We've already talked about, we have a congressional race coming up in 2026 that for the first time in many, many years, there are multiple Democratic candidates, including Congressman Thompson, the incumbent. So it'll be interesting. I'd like to invite all those candidates to come in and tell us about their ideas.
Yeah.
Locally, so far we've heard from incumbents that have made their campaign launches and their announcements, but what are they offering? And is it the same old stuff? Is it having a vision for the future? So I think we can offer people another platform, especially if there are not people willing to run against the incumbents. How else are we going to learn what the incumbents are really prioritizing and looking forward to?
Sounds like you miss politics, John.
No. I was trying to think of a smart ass comment back, but we served our time. I was 18 years, 12 years, and I think it's helpful and refreshing to have new people.
Yeah.
We've talked also about our people as committed. I believe we were both very committed. I know we were to leadership, and then sometimes that was difficult. Yeah. Sometimes we made decisions that not everybody liked or appreciated, but we were both based in what's best for our community. Yeah. And I hope that we continue to see that kind of leadership going forward. I'm just not 100% convinced that's what we're seeing across the board.
And I'll just end with this, me personally, right, is as we've gone through this, right, we saw Napa through the lens of, for me, born and raised here, growing a family, being in office, and now we're seeing it from the side. And while we have our challenges, I still love this place, right? And the more you talk to people, the more people that you actually connect with, the more that you realize we're pretty damn lucky, right? And you don't want to take that for granted. But it's a self-reflection moment, maybe.
That was beautiful, by the way.
I know.
It really touched me.
I'm one with words, John.
Let's not forget that one of the most exciting things we have to look forward to this next year is the general plan. Let's do it. That's not the final cheers. That's a general plan cheers.
No, I'm not gonna.
Just because I was a little parched, but we do have some opportunities next year with an election coming up. And what are people talking about? What are the priorities? I know the county has a baseline data report that they've put out. We have housing reports, the state of housing in Napa County.
John, we're trying to end on a high note.
I know. I'm setting a context.
Into political jargon about general plans and baseline reports.
You said general plan.
That's going to put people to sleep. We're going to continue to do this, John, be a fountain of information and tell people's stories and perspective and invite people to interact with us in a positive way or a negative way. We are doing something that others could have done. We did it, John. And so we're going to keep doing it our way, our style, with wine and cigars. And I'll say this, I do enjoy my porch time with you, John.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I will end on that note.
Cheers.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Because we can actually say Merry Christmas now.
Happy New Year.